The Afghan Soviet War of 1979 to 1989 was a grueling civil war that inflicted terrible destruction in the country. After World War II, the US and the Soviet Union became the new superpowers. Through the US containment policy and the Soviet Iron Curtain, the two nations carved a largely bipolar power system that started to spread worldwide as they struggled for global hegemony. This brought neo-colonialism, a form of imperialism in which the US and the USSR used their military and economic might to gain influence on different nations. One such victim was Afghanistan. For centuries, Afghanistan warded off foreign invaders who desired the country's strategic location, bordering Iran and Pakistan and giving access to the Persian Gulf oil reserves. The Russians began aiding the Afghans in the 1950s and planted puppet leaders after toppling the monarchy. In 1979, the Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev invaded Afghanistan with 100,000 Soviet troops to expand their influence in the Middle East, solidify the communist rule, and combat the extremist Islamic groups known as the Mujahideen, who fiercely opposed communism and its reforms for defiling Islam. They engaged the Soviets and the Afghan army in the mountains using guerrilla warfare, armed with American weaponry. President Carter and Reagan provided full military support for the Mujahideen, using their religious radicalism to their advantage by stirring up hatred for communism and recruiting volunteers in outlying regions. The U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski played an influential role for this job.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day, because your fight will prevail, and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again, because your cause is right, and God is on your side.
The Truman and Reagan doctrines, products of the U.S. containment policy, justified the American economic and military support to counter communism. This elevated U.S. as the global police, enabling America to abuse its military power by starting proxy wars such as the Korean War and the Vietnam War, and conduct covert operations to support dictators in Latin America, Africa, and Middle East. Preventing communism was the perfect excuse to exercise global domination, while principles of democracy and freedom were mere sugarcoating. Same principle applied to the Soviets, who abused their power in the name of socialism and anti-capitalism. Naturally, this came at a terrible price. The U.S. support for fundamentalists in the Middle East resulted in hostile extremist Islamic states. Because of excessive U.S. military aid, the Mujahideen became the Taliban, who brought further bloodshed in Afghanistan and became a symbol for global terrorism. By the time the Soviets finally retreated in 1989, due to increased international pressure and casualty of 15,000 troops, Afghanistan had been reduced to rubble, mainly due to Soviet airstrikes. Since 1979, 1 million Afghans perished, with 5 million either wounded or spilled into neighboring countries as refugees, mainly to Pakistan. Indeed, the Cold War has left a legacy of destruction and grief, reflected in the generation of scarred, homeless Afghan children. Perhaps the picture called The Afghan Girl accurately depicts the post-war Afghan situation. Her facial expression contains enormous fear and grief from war and chaos, but her eyes also express an immeasurable determination and a strong will to survive, symbolizing the enduring Afghan spirit. A vital legacy of suffering and courage that will live on through the children and eventually raise the nation from the ashes.